All right, what's up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Quill and Hammer, Reforging Fiction. I'm Trevor. This is Zach, and Zach, what we doing today?
Well, I think this is our last Star Wars episode for a while. We've gone over the sequels, we've gone over the prequels, we've talked about how we would handle Star Wars if we were in charge, what we would do next. And today we're going to do something I'm sure a little bit controversial, but we're going to talk about what we would change in the original trilogy. Some people think this is the Holy Grail. It's scripture. It doesn't need to be changed. Others like us think, yeah, there's room for improvement. So that's what we're going to be tackling today. Trev, why don't you start us off? What do you think needs to be added, taken away, or changed in the original trilogy?
Well, Zach, the main thing for me is I loved A New Hope. I loved Empire Strikes Back, and I loved Return of the Jedi. So I think we're good. We don't.
Okay, we're done.
We Thank you. I'm Trevor. This is Zach. No, no. There are just the little things, and granted, this is us fixing things or doing what George Lucas did in '94, and then as he started going up to as he started going up to the prequel trilogies, he made some changes and things. This is stuff that I wish we would have done, and really this was sparked by I don't know if you Star Wars fans remember. Zach, do you remember? I feel like there was an Instagram video going around of what the lightsaber battle between Darth Vader and Obi-Wan should have looked like.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, I
You
remember that.
you remember that?
Hmm.
That was the thought for me of like, all right, we have gone through all of the things that we wanted, but what if we added a little touches here and there? Because I am certainly not advocating for we need to redo the entire Star Wars original trilogy. I don't think so. The only thing I can imagine really making a difference to me to take it from really, really amazing to the best absolute freaking movie I've ever seen is some of those touches. If you had the lightsaber battles first that you had in the prequel trilogies, I can't think of anything better. And then the other thing is, and granted, this sounds like it's a criticism. It's not, because of the times, but like I would have loved to have seen more force powers.
Right.
Um, we we did not see really anything other than uh these, be on your way. I can't remember what Obi-Wan says to the
These are
stormtrooper.
not the droids you're looking for.
There you go.
You don't need to see his identification.
There it is.
Move along.
Move along. Move along. So just a couple of little things. As far as the plot goes, I don't think I'm changing A New Hope at all. A New Hope sets up the series perfectly. You've got Luke, you have no idea who Leia is, you have no idea what's going on. It immediately starts with conflict. It's just little things like that that I would add in.
Okay.
What are
Well,
your thoughts?
well, I want to talk about some things that maybe don't make sense that I
Okay.
want resolved. So, what about, and this may be nitpicky, but go back to Mos Eisley Cantina when Obi-Wan slices off that alien's arm.
Yeah.
Why does blood come out?
Zach, I know the answer. I know the answer is rooted in they just did not have any idea how to do special effects and did not have the money to do it. at the time. They did not know that Star Wars was going to be that big of a deal. And so I guess that's just how it happened. Now you are correct though. You shouldn't have the blood coming out and the empty prop leg or arm or whatever it was that's so obviously. So I understand that. That's something that I think I would fix. I don't want to go through and try and retcon, not retcon, explain that this species has some weird, you know, biological makeup or anything like that. I think you just go in, instead of blood, you just cauterize the wound like we've seen in every show, Star Wars scene or whatever movie thing after A New Hope. I think that's just something that needs to be fixed.
Well, I think, you've got the the fix. You have the change that George Lucas made to Han shooting first or Greedo shooting first. Why can't they just touch that up? Now, I have heard um, that specific alien you're talking about, this alien has a weird biological makeup. I have heard that spiders, which is what that species is based off of, don't have veins the same way we do. It's more just empty cavities and the blood flows through. So maybe George Lucas actually did his research and there's the vessels or the cavities that carry the blood are too large to cauterize through and cause coagulation. But regardless, I think something needs to be done. It looks bad.
All right. I agree with you there. I am not a fan of the Han shot, not Han shot first. I don't necessarily care for the Greedo shooting first, Han shooting second thing. What are
Mm-hmm.
your thoughts there? Do you care? Does it matter? I've always wondered because it's like, Han is kind of a hero, but he's also a scoundrel. So like, does it matter that he shot first? He was going to be killed anyway. Like,
I don't know. I don't know. It's I can see where George Lucas comes from. You don't want, I mean, he said this multiple times, despite the fact that 30-year-olds like us are obsessed with Star Wars. He made it for kids,
yeah,
right? And it's not a good look to have one of your main heroes, you know, basically kill someone in cold blood. So I get it,
yeah.
but it doesn't make a huge difference to me. I don't think it changes the character, the con or the not the conflict, but the uproar about it online, the cult following who insists that Han shot first. It doesn't matter to me. I don't think it matters. But
I I don't think it matters for sake of argument. I think it's a more intriguing idea for Han's character arc that like yeah, he knew he was he knew he was gonna be killed or die and needed to get out of it and I'm fine with him shooting first. I don't care. I don't think it matters either way, but like it
whatever.
it makes more sense to me that he killed him because Greedo was supposed to take him to Jabba, right?
Mhm.
So anyway, that's that. Um, talk to me about A New Hope. Is there anything in A New Hope that I mean, there were little touches up here and there over the years. The thing that comes to my mind are notably the speeder. Underneath the speeder, it was touched up a little bit so you could see that it was actually floating and not the special effect to hide the wheels.
Right.
They added, a couple of CGI animals in, creatures or whatever. Most of the things that I want to change are not really there. the biggest thing for me is I really want that big lightsaber battle between Darth Vader and Obi-Wan.
Well, I think I do too, you know. Um, and granted, this is 40 years later, but I do think the pacing is a little slow.
Hmm.
I would see if you could pick up the pace a little bit. And maybe that's just because as a society we've become ADHD and, can't handle slow burning plots and that sort of thing. But, it's like it takes so long from the opening sequence from when, let's say, C3PO and R2 get to Tatooine to when they get to the Death Star. It's like it takes forever. And
Yeah,
then Death Star to the end of the movie feels like, it's 20 minutes.
right.
So I think maybe there could be something done there, speed it up, have more tense moments in the Death Star, or um maybe a dog fight outside the Death Star before as they're escaping. Or did that happen? That did happen. I'm confusing movies.
Yes.
But I think maybe a little more action. You know what I mean? Just to because it feels a little slow.
It it does. And it is, Zach. Was it slow for, the 70s, 1977? No. It was a perfectly well-paced movie. But now here we are, and yeah, it does feel slow. And part of that is because of where we are as a society. Part of that is because I mean, as things have progressed and you were able to pack more things in and do more, there's just a ton of stuff to do and see,
Right.
and the plots get thicker, and that's fine. But what would you add then? I'm trying to think. I want to play this out a little bit. Um, you've got a dogfight in the whatever. I don't know. I'd like to see, were Inquisitors around at this time, or were they
Yeah.
gone?
No, they should have been
They
around.
should have been around, right?
Hmm.
I would like to see maybe some Inquisitors out there tracking down leads, or of course, they didn't exist in 1977 when this all
Right.
started and it
Right.
expanded and everything. But if we were going back now, I would like to see more of the Empire's oppression and presence, and maybe a little bit of why it's lacking on Tatooine, just a
Yeah.
tiny bit. But that urgency, like at the end of Rogue One, where they are escaping and Darth Vader is coming down the hall and
Hmm.
he's going just absolute beast mode down the hall, and it's awesome and I love it. I would love for that same energy to have kept going. I would maybe go back and redo the opening scene
Right.
so that he's more of a terror, because all you really see is him walking through, but you just,
Hmm.
and again, some of the audacity of Star Wars is, it's just funny. Um, you know, Leia's on this ship. Darth Vader literally watches it, steal the plans, drop out, enter into light speed, or into light speed. They chase after them, capture them, and then she's like, "I don't know what you're talking about. I'm on a diplomatic mission to Alderaan." And it's like
Right.
the audacity of it. But I would love for him to, to maybe tie that a little bit closer together, and then
Hmm.
I would love for him to come in and start killing more people.
I think that would be a good addition to show his rage a little bit,
Hmm.
you know, like and that kind of goes back to the force powers, but have him cut somebody down and do like a clench fist, and the ship starts to crumble type thing around them, and it
Hmm.
freaks Leia out, and that's I don't know, something like that,
Something,
just to show, like you said, that he's more of a terror, you
right.
know. But
That is the main thing is you not that Darth Vader loses the menacing, you know, um aura that he has presented, but as we've seen more of what he can do and we've expanded on his powers and everything from the prequels all the way up to Rogue One, and then it just looks a little stiff or whatever, as it should, because
right,
this was the main thing 50 years ago, but still. Um, that's what would go through me is some of the, maybe a little bit more acrobatic, maybe showing that yeah, Obi-Wan is old, but he can still move a little bit. Like
oh yeah,
he can still call on the Force and strengthen his body and he looks old, but that's only because he was on Tatooine for 17 years and
right.
that kind of stuff. So I would fix that in the first movie. No real plot points or anything need to change. More the tone. Am I correct on that?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I'm okay with, obviously, with the good triumph over evil, and the triumphant tone, but you can always add a little more, I don't want to say despair, but
Right,
questions of whether the heroes are going to make it out. You know what I mean? A little more tension.
right,
I don't know. Maybe you see one of them get wounded by a stormtrooper shot, instead of not a
right,
single shot lands out of all 300 of them that they go through. I don't know.
right.
Something like that, but
And I agree with you there. I just had this thought that freaking give Chewie the medal, man. At the end of the movie, that's it. Give him the medal. Make the change.
you know what? I don't think that one matters as much either. I'm gonna be straight up
It
honest with
does.
you.
He got the shaft. What did Luke and Han do? Yeah, they did a whole bunch of stuff. But so did Chewie. And he can't even speak to people. He can't even fight for himself.
I just I
Do
don't
it
think
for
it's as
me,
big of a
Zach.
deal.
Do it for me.
I just don't think it's as big of a deal as everybody makes it out to be. Did he get the shaft? Sure. But like, so, what I mean? Like, it was it was a 3-minute scene. Like, I don't know, it doesn't make a huge deal for me. I don't know. But
It the aesthetics for me, Zach, you know how I'm OCD about things that don't matter a little
yeah,
bit?
I am very aware.
Should I explain or are we good leaving it right
No,
there?
we can leave it there.
Okay,
We can
I'm
leave it there.
OCD about certain things. And giving Luke and Han uh the medals, but having Chewie walk down and have them all three there, the incomplete uh whatever itches at the back of my mind. You know what I mean? Just a little tiny bit. It it's unfinished. It's like that episode, if any of you guys like The Big Bang Theory, where Amy's trying to teach Sheldon how to not be OCD about things and not always finish things, whatever. I can't remember the exact plot, but
Hmm.
it's that. It itches at the back of my mind like it's incomplete. That is all. That is all I'm saying. There are three people walking down the aisle. There should be three medals. That's it. That's why. The rule of three.
All right, man. All right, I'll drop it. I don't see it making a huge difference.
It really doesn't, but but it's just a little nitpicky thing that I agree with.
And to be fair, I have my own nitpicks, so fine.
Okay, let's move on to Empire Strikes Back. As
Okay,
far as A New Hope goes, there's not a lot I would change. It's just aesthetic things and
right.
maybe one or two more examples of the Force and fighting. And I think that, if you put that one CGI fight of Darth Vader and Obi-Wan in there that's like 5 minutes long that you can't stop watching,
Hmm.
that that would make it a perfect movie.
Right.
Um, the second movie, and here's a question: Did was there any mention of the Emperor in A New Hope?
I think they mention the Emperor, like they name drop him in
In
that
that,
boardroom scene, I think,
yeah,
but that's about it, as
that's
far as
about
I
it.
can remember.
I think so. Maybe you add a little bit of, you know, more of him
Okay,
in there in A New Hope. Just a thought, but not necessarily. Certainly not necessary for any of the plot points or moving it forward or anything. Just as a if you drop a couple of more, the Emperor is displeased or whatever, then it
right,
feels like he's not just showing up out of nowhere in Empire Strikes Back. But
right.
Empire Strikes Back, Zeke, what are your thoughts?
I mean, I know everybody says this is their favorite um, original trilogy film. I don't think it's mine. I don't think it's mine. I mean, I love the opening sequence on Hoth where there's the battle, like that's the kind of action that I want, where it's larger scale, you've got, an actual rebel force behind them. And I mean, it was pretty cool. You see the big AT-AT walkers walking around and you take them down with the cables and you see Luke having to eject and climb up and destroy one by hand, like that stuff is cool,
Right.
you know, but there are a couple of things that don't make sense to me.
Okay.
And I'm sure these are easily explainable or people have made fixes for these things, but my big one is Han, Leia, Chewie, they don't really do much. You know what I mean? Like they're just on the run. They're basically just a plot device for Luke to get captured. It's like what was their plan? It's like the base at Hoth um gets attacked. Han says, I'll take the princess and we'll rendezvous, but like that's about it. You know what I mean? They don't really do anything. They're just being chased and you have the asteroid field and like those are cool things, cool sequences, but
Hmm.
like doesn't really do anything. You don't really go anywhere. And so I don't love that one. I don't love that part of the story.
Right.
Um, but and then my other problem is it's like, well, that seems to happen within 1 or 2 days, but Luke is training on Dagobah for how long?
Right.
Like you don't really know, and how long does he need to train to be able to not get slaughtered by Darth Vader immediately?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like these are some of my things that are inconsistencies, and I I know there's the whole light speed and the theory of relativity and all that kind of stuff that you can use to try and explain it, but I want some frank explanations. I want them to say, okay, well, yeah, Han and Leia were on the run for this amount of time. Luke was on Dagobah for this amount of time. They were captured on Bespin for 3 weeks before Luke showed up. I don't know, something along these lines. I want a little bit more of an explanation there because it's like you see 2 or 3 scenes of Luke training and he's got a pretty good grasp on the Force already, and it's like it just that doesn't feel consistent to me. You know
Right.
what I mean? It's not quite as bad as Rey in The Last Jedi or in The Force Awakens, but it still bothers me.
right?
Bothers me that, just it happens so quickly, you know.
Yes. And that's fair. That is more than fair. My question starts off with all of the timeline, I guess. Um, how long was between how long was it between each movie? How long was each movie? How long did it take? You never really know how long hyperspeed actually takes.
Right.
Um, and that's okay. I did Google, they say someone said the Falcon's food storages should be enough to last about 2 months. This is may4bewithyou.com. But does that really, can we really trust that? So like their hyperdrive is hobbled. Maybe it takes them longer to get there, but you don't really see that time elapse.
Right.
Um, so their suggestion is that they're about 6 to 8 weeks of just trying to hobble to Bespin, somewhere where they can get help, and but you don't see that full time lapse in there, and maybe you should. Maybe there should be another dogfight. Maybe there should be. I mean, as long as we are, as long as we're making things up, not making things up, fixing things, you've got, um, you've got Boba Fett in Slave One. I want to see some more of those depth charge
Hmm.
things,
I mean,
like let's add some of that, and maybe like that chase that Obi-Wan was doing, and
right.
see them actually shake Boba Fett just a little bit, show that Han really is the pilot he thinks he is,
Right. Right.
that kind of thing. Because yes, their plot is boring. It is, I mean, there's really nothing that happens. They leave, they float around for a while, they show up at Bespin Air City, um, and then Darth Vader is there.
Right.
And and let's be honest, Darth Vader stopping the blaster bolt,
Oh, that's dope.
that's dope. Things like that are awesome. It's more,
Right.
again, a little bit of pacing that seems to be
Right.
our issue with some of the things. And granted, they do the best that they can,
Of
uh,
course.
but still. For me, a little bit of the training with Luke is fine. I don't mind that. I like him going away. And I would be more interested in a couple of different force powers from Darth Vader in the fight at the end.
Okay.
But I don't know which ones I would want him to show off. Like he's trying to, put Luke on the back foot, recruit him to the join me, like kind of thing.
Hmm.
I would like him to show a little bit more diversified force power than, you know, he does see, but like in the end he's really just toying with Luke.
Right.
And so I don't know if I would change things there. To be honest, it's just the pacing in the middle of the movie that I would like to fix.
Right.
And so it's like let's add a little something there. I would love to see a little bit of Yoda with a lightsaber.
I would too. And that's one of my things is when did Luke learn how to use the lightsaber? He
Right.
had the blaster robot thing where you have the blast shield down that they use
Hmm.
in A New Hope. But other than that, how I mean he kind of holds his own. He's trained enough to not get slaughtered by Darth Vader.
Right.
But when did that happen? You know
Right.
what I mean?
How did
Like
he learn how to duel?
exactly. you know, and you can even carry that forward into Return
Return
of
of
the
the Jedi.
Jedi because, he doesn't have anybody at that point. He's all on his own, and not to skip forward, but maybe you can add some training sequences where I mean, we've talked about this sort of thing with our idea of the sequel trilogies, but show him finding some ancient Jedi texts and studying them and implementing them into his routines, and
Mhm.
show him working at it instead of just now I'm a Jedi. You know what I mean?
Right.
I just
Even
feel
if,
like there's just a disconnect. You know what I mean?
right. I mean, even if you just see him going through some sort of martial kata or something,
Right,
at the beginning, like he's on Tatooine and you just see a little bit of something somewhere.
right.
I don't know.
Actually, I think that would be a really good idea. It would only take 30 seconds.
30 seconds, but you've just got him moving through the kata with the lightsaber
Hmm.
and doing a couple of stabs or whatever. I think that would go a long way.
It would go a long way to showing that he's not just got his dad's sword. You know what I mean? It's like there's more to it. He's skilled. He's been practicing.
Right.
But anyway,
Well,
we've kind of I kind of bled over into Return of the Jedi. Did you have any other thoughts about Empire Strikes Back?
I don't have a lot of thoughts other than I maybe a little more action on, Han's part, a little bit of whatever, but to be honest, the Return of the Jedi is where I would like to deviate. And to be honest, my deviation comes maybe a little bit during the Empire. I don't know why they're trying to rebuild the Death Star.
I'm with you.
I feel like if you took the Death Star 2 out of the movies and you try and consolidate everything into the hunt for Darth Vader, or not Darth Vader, the hunt for the rebellion, and then you move the core of the fight somewhere towards the, Coruscant. I feel like that would be much more impactful. You're finally taking the fight to the Emperor.
So you're thinking the Rebel Alliance leads the Empire on a chase only for them to end up attacking Coruscant themselves?
I think so. I think
Okay.
somewhere you have to get rid of the Emperor. And I think the Emperor is, I mean, he's certainly arrogant enough that he would go to the Death Star too, but I think he's smart enough to know that after the first Death Star, you know, died, was blown up, that he's like, all right, well, let's stick a fork in that one and, you know, let's just go ahead and crush them ship to ship like we have been. We don't need to destroy
Right.
planets necessarily right now.
Right.
So that's kind of my thought is we start making the Death Star 2 and it's very much operational and all of that, but like if you based it around a different planet and I'm not even saying like you can't have, um, you know, you go to is it Endor?
The
You
moon
are
of Endor.
the moon of Endor. Um, if you go there, um, you can still have some sort of plot that, yeah, we need to go to Endor because that's where not where the shield generator is, but that's where like the codes are, or, you know,
Right.
something requires you to go there, and then you've got, or like that's where the codes are generated or something out in the middle of nowhere. So you're separating that, and then you have to go get the override code and transmit it to the, um, Lando and everyone trying to penetrate the Coruscant defenses,
Right.
and then they do, and that's when they start going down and attacking the actual. Imperial Palace,
Hmm.
and Luke's down there like there's no way they can get to us, and I think that would be more interesting to me than, well, we've just got another Death Star and we have to get rid of the Emperor, so let's bring him to the Death Star too. And I don't know. What are your thoughts there?
No, I'm with you. I think, you'd have to workshop a few things, like what is the military target that the Rebel Alliance is specifically targeting? How can they be sure that they're not going to endanger civilian lives? How do they make this, how do they stop this from being seen as, a terrorist attack type thing?
Right.
you know, and those things could be workshopped. But I like the idea of them taking the fight to, the Emperor's home base type thing, and I think, I don't know, I think it could definitely work. There are some details that would need to be worked out, but I like the idea of, yeah, you go to, you send half of them to the forest moon on Endor to get the codes. Then you transmit them to the Millennium Falcon, and the Millennium Falcon, or they have the what is it, the Imperial shuttle,
Yeah.
and they fly casual into Coruscant. You know what I mean? Like, and you have the same kind of thing. It's like a stealth mission for Han, Leia, and Luke,
Hmm.
who get down there, and you'd have to have kind of a separate base. You wouldn't have the shield generators or the planetary defense system right next to the Imperial Palace, so you'd have to geographically separate those so that Luke can still be captured, be taken to the Emperor, have that,
Hmm.
those moments with Darth Vader where they talk about, if Anakin Skywalker is still in there or not, and I think you could even have some interesting scenes with them walking through the Jedi Temple, because that's what the Imperial Palace is. It was the old Jedi Temple, it was a stick it to him kind of move by the Emperor, and
Yeah.
you can have Luke kind of jab Vader with it a little bit and say, you grew up in these halls, how can you stay here knowing that you've affronted, and have a little bit more of a uh, emotional conversation. You know what I mean? So I think
Right.
there would be some good emotional payoffs and character development going on if you did something like that. But the problems that I do see with that are, how is the population of Coruscant going to view this? Are they going to see this as a terrorist attack on the galactic capital, or are they going to see this as a liberation? And how do you paint that? you
Right.
know, and where you have an isolated space station, you don't really get that as much. Where it's just a military operation, you attack the military target, but when you're endangering civilians, I think that becomes a little more problematic. But
Right. Well, I imagine, so remember at the end of the most recent, maybe not the most recent, I can't remember when it showed up, but like somewhere after we did, I don't know, one of George Lucas's changes was to add, Anakin in,
mhm,
and at young Anakin, and then the other was they start showing, Naboo with fireworks and Coruscant and all these other places celebrating.
right.
I think you have to assume that being on Coruscant is worse than being anywhere else, because Coruscant already has so much, you've got the people that live on the surface level who are, you know, presumably the elites and the, people closest to the emperor or whatever, but then like everyone else on the, underneath the lower levels, those are all the slums, and you've got, you know, literal ants underneath you that you have to keep from overwhelming everything. And so I think there's a
Right.
huge military presence on Coruscant, especially near the Imperial Palace and, the Senate building and all of those things. Like, I think that's an easy sell, is that they knew what it was like underneath the Republic, and yeah, maybe it wasn't great, but it's gotten so much worse
Right.
since then that they are all more than ready to do their part. And to bring something, full circle, maybe there's a little bit of an underground, group you tap into, instead of necessarily the Ewoks, you know, you have like, yep, this group of alien misfits underneath the city that are like, hey, we can show you the back way into the Jedi Temple, or, this
Right.
is, that kind of thing. I
And
think that would
now
be intriguing.
now that you say that, I think that would work really well. You have civil unrest because of how much worse it's gotten in the slums, and you have, and you can show some of those things. That's way back when we started with our Star Wars reforgings. We talked about in the prequels in the Phantom Menace how we wanted to see more terrorization and
Right.
show us the menace, and maybe you can show some of that through cinematography. That, yeah, it's brutal. The military presence is extremely oppressive, and they make it a living hell for the people who are in the slums,
Hmm.
and they extract every bit of excess they could ever have so that they're barely surviving, and it creates resentment, and it's been festering for 25 years. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
now that you say it, I think that is something that could work really well.
So I think if you add that in there, and not that you don't see, I mean, because there's not a lot of civilian perspective in the Star Wars universe.
Mhm.
Um, and so I feel like if you add just a little bit of that in, then you can really see how bad it is. Because yeah, Darth Vader is evil, yeah, the Emperor is evil, but we're more really just told that they are.
Right.
And then it's only when you finally see Palpatine using Force lightning on Luke that you're like, whoa, that must be evil, because
Right.
he's just electrocuting this kid. Um,
Right.
but to show the brutality, not just to the rebellion, but to like normal citizens, like,
Mhm.
because think of like Rebels and things, the show, the series Rebels, where like, yeah, it's not all fun and games. The Imperial presence is real, and they're shutting off, you know, um, you know, bits and pieces of life, and they're becoming more oppressive, and it's, stifling, and you should see some of that, and maybe some
Right.
more of the brutality of that added in across the board would be very beneficial. I mean, think of the go back to A New Hope, and you're on you're in Mos Eisley. Mos Eisley, is that where you are?
Hmm.
So you're in Mos Eisley, and if you just see like a stormtrooper just like, you know, pistol whip someone. I don't know.
Right.
Um, and when they're going door to door looking for the droids, instead of acting like missionaries, they're like kicking the door in and something like that.
Right. Right.
A little bit more brutality and authoritarianism regime would set the tone a lot more than what we kind of get.
Yeah.
But what we got is seriously just amazing given that it was 1977, you know.
Right.
But back to you know, the assault on Coruscant. I really think that's more of a realistic, like, why would the Emperor leave his base of power? Why would he go to the Death Star too? And I know there are reasons and they're mostly plot device reasons, but I feel like you could have something else rather than relying on a Death Star, a huge super weapon that you kind of don't really need.
Right. Well, and I mean, we've talked about it before, but there's not a whole lot to be gained by destroying an entire planet.
Right,
You know what I mean? Rarely, and with all their resources, it's not like they can't suppress any little rebellion on a single planet.
right,
What they're doing is depriving the empire of more resources that they can extract. So I mean it really doesn't make a whole lot of sense. It was this huge spectacle and it was like, holy cow, it can destroy an entire planet, but if you really sit down and workshop it, it's like, well, but why are we doing this? You know what I mean?
right.
Like
Well,
there's
yeah,
not much of a purpose.
clearly it's got a root in like nuclear warfare, like,
Sure,
you
sure,
know, but the threat of having a super weapon is more, you know, it's like the threat of nuclear weapons is what's keeping countries in line. There's that theory, you know,
right.
keeping the world from going World War III on us all. And, you know, if one person uses it, then the other country's going to use it, and then we just destroy everything. Having having a super weapon, the idea of it is like, yeah, we blow up Alderaan, the planet that has nothing, no peace, or you know, no warriors. They're just a peaceful planet or whatever. And then,
Hmm.
uh, yeah, we did that to them. What would we do to you? Stay in line. You know, the
Right,
intimidation factor of it is there, but it's something that you can only use once or twice before it's like, well, yeah, what are you going to do? You're going to destroy your entire population. You're going to destroy the galaxy. So
right,
I don't know. I mean, it's kind of a if you use it too much, then you're I don't know. You know what I mean?
I see. I
But
getcha.
the idea of a super weapon as a deterrent does not does not bother me. But then it's like, okay, well, why are we doing this again out in the middle of nowhere? Um, and why did you know? How did the rebellion figure it out? Shouldn't we be doing this somewhere else? Do we really need it to be the size of a small moon? Like maybe it really is put on, you know, let's put this on the back burner kind of thing.
Right,
Um, that's my main complaint though is the Death Star 2 is just a plot device to get the Emperor somewhere where they can kill him.
right,
And I think it would be much more compelling if you had a strike force going down to actual Coruscant to try and take over and instead of maybe blowing up the Imperial or you know the Death Star 2, they destroy the palace or something. I don't know.
right. I I think it would have more of a Rogue One feel if you were able to do something like that.
Yeah,
Like there's so much sacrifice. It's like they know they're going to their death, but they do it anyway because it's the right thing. And sure there's, an element of that in the fight of the second Death Star, but it's different,
it's different.
So I would be 100% in favor of making that change,
Yeah, like we're probably not going to get out, you know,
right?
but we're going to make sure that Palpatine somehow doesn't return.
Right,
So anyway, I don't know. There are things mostly they're cosmetic, but then you get to the Death Star 2 is really the thing that I would would change going back.
Right.
I think after the first one, it's like, let's pivot. We don't need to focus on this one thing that may or may not work. We've got all of these systems under control. We've got our Imperial dreadnoughts and our, you know, flagships or whatever. Like we don't really need that. If we're really, set on this massive super weapon, why didn't we just put it into the ships like we did in Exegol in number nine or whatever.
Right. Right.
Like that's the logical step is why do we need this huge spectacle? If we could put that, weapon in just a ship, and that's all it is. It's a ship with the weapon, and you've got a small crew, and we just go and do it.
Right.
Like, so that's my thought. Zach, do you have anything else?
No, I think that's it. Um, there's really not much that I would want to change about the originals, just those things that we mentioned, but that's about it.
Like really, really, it's cosmetic stuff. The Death Star 2 plot is the only thing that I would really change. Add a couple of things here and there, a couple of dogfights, more intense lightsaber battles. I would love to
Hmm.
see again the battle between Luke and Vader
Oh yeah.
in, Return of the Jedi. A lot more acrobatics, a lot more um, reminiscent of the battle between Anakin and Obi-Wan, to be honest.
Yes. Yes.
Um,
I would I would very much be in favor of that as well.
so what do you think? You just let us know. Are we wrong for trying to change this? Can we still be called fans because we have things we want to change about the original trilogies? What do you think?
Check out our video above me here if you want to hear our thoughts on what our sequel trilogy would be if you haven't already seen it.
And then up here you can click. Um, this is our link to our channel. We've got a whole bunch more on Star Wars, Harry Potter, other things. If you're interested, give it a check out.
And don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and drop a comment if you have got an idea that we should consider fixing next.
Right, and then hit the bell so you don't miss any of our new content coming out.
Until next time, stay curious.
And keep reforging fiction.